Here, I'd like to welcome everybody to Toolkit Tuesday. The weeks continue and Tuesdays keep coming, and we're so excited to be bringing event planners information and best practices, lessons that we're learning, and we're super excited to have with us today Miss Tara Barnes with Pathable, one of the leading virtual event platforms. So Tara, tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at Pathable.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Lynn, and welcome everybody. So I am the VP of Marketing and Operations with Pathable, and I have an interesting career arc because I've actually worked with Pathable in the past. So I was one of our first marketing hires in 2008. I'll get in a little bit into the company's history, but so worked with the company for a few years, made a transition, and have been in marketing for well over a decade. But I've also spent 6 years on the third-party planning agency side of our incredible industry. So I have been a planner, I've been a part of a team of planners, and I've also managed a team of 6 full-time planners in an operational capacity. So I have this really unique mishmash background that is perfectly suited to this technology, this moment in time, and to really be a partner and advocate for planners, because I know that there's so many questions out there right now around what in the world are we doing?
Well, and I love that you have walked a mile in planners' shoes. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I've been on 25 plus demos with tech platforms in the last 2 months, and it's great to know that you understand our plight and you understand, you know, the change that we're experiencing right now, and to be a provider, having that insight to the consumer, I think must serve you really well.
It does. Yeah. And I feel like I guess it provides a level of authenticity. And I've sat in on competitor demos as well. And, you know, I think it matters. I think it matters right now that people feel seen, feel heard, and, you know, work with a provider that gets it and understands, you know, it's not tech for tech's sake. It's tech for, you know, true partnership and enablement of virtual events, which is what we have right now. That's really the only option available to us.
Well, and my intersection with Pathable as a partner in the event space came when you guys came on the scene many years ago. How long have you been in business?
Since 2007, so this is our 13th year.
13th year, which says a lot about, you know, a lot of these tech tools are coming into the marketplace, and it seems a bit bandwagon. And when you ask how many of these, you know, digital events have you produced, and they don't have any under their belt, it's a little creates uncertainty for sure. So I was familiar with Pathable when you guys created the opportunity to print on the back of a name badge the names of a few people that you should meet while you're at the event. And I, at the time, I thought that was genius. I was like, this is great. They come here and we're facilitating this networking a little bit better. And then we used you guys as a mobile app. And so now you guys have grown in, as my understanding, you've grown in now to this digital event platform. So tell us a little bit about Pathable and the services and kind of that journey as a company.
Absolutely. So Pathable was founded in 2007 by 2 of our co-founders who are still with us today. So Jordan Schwartz and Peter Brown, both of them have highly technical backgrounds, not in the event space, but they saw a need. So at the time, you know, when Pathable came to fruition, it was this, you know, it was essentially a private community, a private online community for events. And the need was, you know, I think that the best products and services often come from that recognizing the why, as opposed to just, oh, this is cool, let's put this out there. So Jordan and Peter had this wonderful, you know, realization that as they were going to events, and, you know, it's like, it is incredibly difficult to find the right people to connect with. You're in this, you know, this used to be my pitch when I would do demos way back in the day, but how do you find the right people to connect with amid a sea of thousands? It's nearly impossible. And so this was back in 2007. So they created this, you know, persistent online community for events where people could connect months before, find others with shared interests, and, you know, build those connections so that when they arrived on site, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, where do I even begin? It was, I already have these established contacts that they could then, and I've already had these preset meetings. And so to your point, Lynn, yes, the product has, you know, it's evolved. And so that's how it began. That's sort of the origin story. And then, you know, as a part of that, we realized that, you know, with so much, you know, smart technology, people needing information in the palm of their hand, you know, mobile became very prevalent. And so we, you know, evolved into also offering them a mobile app component with a whole lot of rich you know, functionality underneath it, you know, gamification and all these ways, you know, incorporating badge scanning, all of this evolved as the product grew, but, we recognized, wow, people, need to know on the go, they're not going to be carrying their laptop around with them. So who did I, set those meetings with? Who are those people that I wanted to connect with? What are the sessions that I registered for? You want to have that on the go. And then, as COVID was happening, all we've really done in response to this global pandemic is just deepen our product offering. To your point, we've been powering events for 13 years now, so this is not a new concept for us. And so we just, as a team, strategically came together to say, what else do we need to do to deepen our service so that we can offer that true end-to-end virtual event platform experience? And so that's kind of where we found ourselves today.
And as folks, as event planners consider, the need for a virtual platform, what are some of the things that we should be thinking about as event planners, as the consumer that's shopping a new tool, a new product? What are some of the things that we need to be thinking about before we go shopping?
Great question. There's a myriad of things I think are important to keep in mind. So what are your goals? I mean, I always bring it back to, coming from the planner side, what are your goals? What are your clients' goals? What are you hoping to do with your event? And so think about that, because that will help you understand, because we can play here in terms of how much functionality we offer, and we can expand to, 30, 50,000 person trade shows. So it depends on what your goals are. So knowing that as you start into these conversations is very helpful. Also having a clear idea of, what exactly are you hoping to accomplish, and being realistic about that. So I think what trips people up right now is, how can I create the exact, if you have a historical event that you have done year over year, for example, and you're now faced with, oh man, do we cancel, or do we, I kind of don't like the word pivot, but do we move to a virtual event? It's not a one-to-one translation, obviously, because if you think about it, things like F&B and transportation, and there are elements of your in-person that just literally don't translate into a virtual environment. So what are the key components that you are imagining you'd like to hold on to, and how, thinking about ways in which you would like them to be recreated in a virtual format. Obviously having a core understanding of, what you think your event might evolve into. So if you're anticipating a drop off in attendance, or maybe you think you're going to expand your audience because now you're not having to have people fly in from all over the world. So just the basic parameters of what you think your event's going to look like. So putting some thought beforehand into session development, and, strategizing around how that could look, because it doesn't have to be an exact replica of what you would do in person. I can get into some best practices we've seen be really successful from clients we've worked with, but knowing what that might look like will help you look around to find the right platform that meets your needs. Going back to the goals and what you think is right, I think a lot of people are also getting stuck in this idea of, we need to have this true virtual reality kind of experience specifically to the, a trade show or exhibit hall component. And, I'll be totally candid and say that we deliberately chose not to create that kind of environment, because it doesn't, in our minds, it doesn't necessarily serve the right purpose, especially when you think about having to navigate around. Do we really enjoy the experience when we're on site of having to schlep through an exhibit hall and look for the right people? I think for planners, the importance of a tool when it comes to revenue generation for exhibitors and sponsors, and ease of use for planners, is what are your exhibitors and sponsors looking for at the end of the day? And it's brand awareness, product awareness, and lead generation. And so you need to look for a platform that has functionality that makes that an easy sell for your exhibitors and sponsors.
Well, it's interesting. I know through our programming, I've tried to ease planners and say, they get worked up because their lack of understanding of technology, and particularly these tools. And I try to put their mind at ease around it. It's the same process that you've always used, which is evaluating your goals, but also your specs. What are the specs? We're used to saying we need a ballroom for 300 people, and lunch and a breakfast. We've done this process. We just haven't done it with selecting and we probably have done it selecting an AV company. So it's, again, not that far off. But on the other hand, I think there is an opportunity here to think uniquely about you don't have to bring everything in the kitchen sink over to the digital platform. This is an opportunity to evaluate how well it will translate into the new landscape and kind of experience, and how can you optimize it in a digital setting. You know, I actually had a sponsor tell me the other day they were thrilled to have the opportunity to create a really authentic 3-minute video to send into the virtual platform versus schlepping all the brochures and putting up a pop-up banner and sitting in a trade show and looking at their staff looking at the phone all day and not really getting good engagement. They had gotten even more engagement because it was authentic and intimate, and it was a message that they had to, you know, make very succinct. And so their team got stretched to say, like, let's tell who are we, what are we doing, why does this audience need to hear this? That was an exercise for them. And then now they have this creative asset of the video they can use in multiple shows. And it's just interesting, the wins and the challenges that are coming up. But I do love that you guys have the opportunity to take that partner, and by partner I mean sponsor or vendor, into a space where they can still connect. I think that it's really meaningful opportunity to have those people still be in front of an audience and have the audience come together and network and learn. So I think some of the fundamental pillars are still there. In looking at shopping for virtual platforms, Tara, I know you guys have been inundated. So tell us a little bit about what it's like to be on the side of a digital platform provider right now, the demand, the buying process for planners, you know, the demos, just kind of share your world with us about that.
Yeah, you're right. We're incredibly busy. And you know, it's you know, it's a blessing because there's so many people who are not slammed. And so we're grateful, we're humbled, you know, it's something that we're very appreciative of. And even though we're running like chickens with our heads cut off, it's, you know, I think all of us are acutely aware of the whole of the industry. And so just like very thankful to have this opportunity to get to work with so many incredible clients. And so, you know, it depends on the functionality. Like I'm just busy trying to ensure that I'm building out a content program. You know, we're working on producing our own virtual event purely, and you and I are in conversation about that because it's critical right now that people have, just like you're doing here, are people, you know, vendors like us are providing a value add and providing help as much as we can. So we're working on this on our end so that we can bring together a contingency of people to do exactly what you're doing here. Like, let's talk about the realities. I'm seeing a lot of content out there. You know, we're late to the game in terms of producing a virtual event, but that's because I'm doing it thoughtfully. I'm seeing a lot out there that's, I don't know, for lack of a better term, it's fluffy content. And I don't think that that's what people need right now. People need to understand what are the tactical, you know, steps things I need to be considering if I'm moving virtual. What are some best practices? Like, how do I literally make this happen? And so that's the core that you know, I think there's certainly opportunity for reimagining how we, like to our points a few minutes ago, what might our event have looked like in the past and how could it look differently now? There's absolutely, that will be part of the conversation, but I want it to be grounded in a lot of practicality because I think that that's what people need right now.
Well, and I think that part of our quest with Toolkit is to bring the how-tos, the actual tool. You know, is it a Phillips screwdriver or a flathead? I need to understand, you know, which of these things. So it's about the how-to. So when we shop for, so I've had such a range of experiences with platforms, and of course the one with your team has been phenomenal. Even the response to some of these platforms, again, some have not done this, and then others, when you're trying to reach out, there's lack of response. One platform told me they typically got 20 inquiries, you know, in a month, and last year they've gotten almost 1,000. So again, I was trying to have empathy for that vendor to go, holy smokes, how are you even processing those inquiries? And I know for Pathable, I know you guys are looking at bringing on new clients starting in the fall, right? You guys are trying to ramp up and add staff and make sure you can deliver a great event. So it's not like a faucet that we could turn on and hire you for Friday. You have to build the platform, and it takes some time for your team to be able to facilitate this, right?
Correct.
So, tell me again about so when I'm a planner and I'm trying to reach out, one thing I will say again, I got an immediate response from you guys. And your team has been incredibly responsive through the whole process, even as we came on board as a client and produced an event with you. The support was phenomenal. But tell me about the demo process versus then getting to one of you guys to help me cost out what it how I'm going to
Absolutely.
work with you.
So there's a lot of options. So I do a daily product demo webinar, and it's a webinar. It's not personalized. It's 30 minutes. You can register on our website. It's just me giving you, it's live, which is funny because sometimes, I'll flub my words or I haven't had enough coffee, but it's me giving you a very succinct but high level overview of the functionality of the platform. So that's always a great first step. And we were this way before, but we're very a low pressure environment. So if you've done that, if you want to start there, that's a great starting point. It just gives you the 10,000 foot view. I always send a follow-up email, and it's got a link to our it's our demo request page. So that connects you directly with a salesperson. You'll get an email that says, hey, you've basically been assigned to this person on our team. Here's some questions we'd love to understand. And then once you respond to that, the salesperson has the information and we'll set it. You can directly schedule with them. We use Calendly, but you can find a time to have that one-on-one personalized conversation about your event. So any specifics you've provided them ahead of time about the logistics of your event, they'll come prepared with that to talk pricing. So you can get in the weeds pretty quickly with one of our sales team.
Okay. And I want to encourage everybody on the call to use the chat feature here in the Zoom call. I've posted the tip about join a demo webinar first. So again, if you're making the analogy of this is selecting a venue, you've put your specs together. So maybe you walk into the Hilton lobby and you're like, okay, this seems like it'll work, but that's a general familiarity. So the demo would be get familiar, and then a meeting with your team with your particular specs would be more like a specific site visit at a hotel. Where you're meeting a salesperson, they're reviewing, this is where your general session would fit in this ballroom. You're now talking about how do people get on the platform.
It's a great analogy. Yeah. And I don't know that other vendors are doing that. I think that we are doing that intentionally because, it's fine and it's appropriate that people should get the 10,000 foot view, because you may see things you're like, I don't love that, or maybe this isn't the right fit, and that's perfectly okay. And I think that it seems like some of the other vendors in the space are kind of going to no, you've got to sign up for like a demo, I guess and that's to me, that's jumping the line a little bit to down the road to a sales process. As a consumer, I need to sort of figure out the landscape first before I'm ready to have a salesperson breathing down my neck.
Such a valid point. And I'll tell you, I have been inundated with, frustrated that I have to schedule a webinar, when I just want to look around. Again, you think about the venues, I could go on to a hotel website and take a 360-degree tour, and I can click in the ballroom and I can see what kind of carpet they have. Like I can do a little bit of vetting on my own, which I think is what you're saying, but there is a pressure because of the demand that they want to get you in their sales queue, and you're not even sure what you're buying. So it's a little high pressured for that. Also, the things that the planners need to know before they call you, I'd love to kind of go through those, and maybe you can share yours and I can pop in. I have a list of things that, but just the functionality, what you need the platform to do for you. What should we know as far as our specifics?
Absolutely. So, when I talk about what we do, I always jokingly use this analogy of a three-legged stool, but it's helpful to envision it. So, you have, what are the guts of your event or program, right? So you have your learning and education. So you have your session and you have your content. So before you get into a sales call, I recommend having at least a general idea of how many days is your event going to run? When do you hope to have it live? So our sweet spot is about 2 months before your event is actually scheduled to happen. I always like to call out that a virtual event is exactly the same as an in-person event. It is happening on specific days. It is happening in a specific time range, as are your sessions. It's just happening online. So what are those sessions that you want to be? What is your ideal? So, like I said, you have the opportunity now to reimagine what your schedule might look like. Because best practices wise, it's a big ask to think about someone's booty in a chair for 9 hours a day, just staring at a screen. So you can stretch it out. There's lots of things that you can do to reimagine and what your session makeup looks like. But having some idea of that will help us, because our pricing is built around number of sessions, concurrent sessions, because that all factors into Zoom licensing. So having an idea of how many sessions and when those are going to be happening and over what period of time is a helpful data point to have before you start a conversation. Expected number of attendees. Again, you may not know, but let's just hope, have a ballpark idea of how many attendees you think will be happening. how many speakers, it kind of ties back into sessions, but if you have multiple speakers per session, just again, knowing the guts of your agenda will be very helpful. If you want to have any sort of an exhibitor or sponsor component, knowing the numbers there. So let's say you think you're going to have 15 sponsors, 50 exhibitors. That would be a helpful data point for you to bring to that kind of conversation as well. And then any other needs and functionality. So our platform is really dynamic in that if you want to add other content areas, like we had someone who got in touch with us recently who does the core of their event is being able to showcase various elements of art. So they needed to have a place within the platform where they could like embed imagery and PDFs to be able to show all of these different art elements. So that's something that we kind of custom built in, because at the end of the day, like it's built inside a web platform. So knowing, again, going back to your goals, what do you need this virtual event to do for you? And then what are the sort of data points, attendee numbers, sessions, exhibitor sponsors that you need? And I can happily read off the kind of list that we send over from sales.
Or we could even, Tara, we could put that, if you want to send it to me, we can put it in a toolkit document, and then we can send it to everybody. And I want to make sure from the guests, today, this is an opportunity to learn about the buying experience with a platform, not necessarily the how-tos inside of Pathables, which I do want to get into at the end about just how incredible your tool has worked for us. But so we could send that to the team and put it out through the Toolkit channels. Mm-hmm. That'd be great. We had a question from Christina that was talking about just the breakout experience. Mm-hmm. And, if you have a client that wants to offer breakout sessions, mm-hmm. what steps or elements would a planner need to consider for the level of technological support behind the scenes?
Yes. So knowing what breakout sessions can look like. So we have a lot of functionality that can support that. So, I think of breakouts is in two ways. So perhaps, you have a keynote session, and then breakouts are just sessions that are happening in smaller group formats throughout the day. It's not necessarily like you had a group in a room and you're sending them out to work on exercises. Right now, I'm talking about a breakout being a smaller formatted session type that either maybe it still is in a webinar format where it's the presenter sharing content and they're just talking to a smaller group in a more focused capacity. Or maybe it's that the breakout it's meant to be more interactive between attendees and they should be able to connect. It's an exercise versus, so that's one type of session that I consider a breakout. There's also the functionality of, no, we need to be able to be in a session as a larger group and literally send people out to work on exercises in small groups as breakouts and come back together. So we can do either of those, but as far as how you think about what you need, those are the type of, I guess, what I would call session types, breakouts that I would think about what you're looking for, because that will inform that vendor and how they can say, oh yes, we can support that, or oh gosh, no, that's not actually something that we can do.
Well, and I can say, Christina, we did a produced event with Pathable, the Pathable platform. Now it's been 2 weeks ago, and we had 4 concurrent sessions happening at one time, and it was really easy for the user to get to the right room and click into the meeting and watch. So again, just understanding what your agenda needs are, mm-hmm. And sharing that with Pathable, they have the capabilities to do mm-hmm. that. There was also a question about is there any special Wi-Fi bandwidth needs to have an optimal experience in a virtual event?
Oh, that is a great question. So one thing that we've done is we have this, it's public facing. I can also send that if that would be interesting to people, but it's basically a knowledge base that it's a little bit in the weeds because it's technical information around how to use the platform, technical requirements. So to be candid, I'm not sure if in that we have a Wi-Fi bandwidth requirement, but anything suitable to streaming. So if you are at home, from the attendee side, if they have a speed suitable enough to stream, that should be fine to participate in. And as we start to think about production, that's where it's helpful to bring in potentially an AV partner, mostly because if you know that there's a certain session that has a critical importance, that might go beyond what our home Wi-Fi might be supporting, or if you know that you're it's going to be used at a later time, like it's a sales tool, or, you know, it just needs to have that high level of polish. You can, all of these AV companies, many of them are moving toward being able to really partner in a different way for virtual events. So, you know, we have a list of partners that we work with that you could ask, like, what do we really need to ensure that the speaker has, and where should they be to ensure that that's happening?
Well, again, I will pull from my experience working with you guys that we did all of the entire session from our planning team on our existing Wi-Fi platforms.
Okay.
So nobody was hardlined in and nobody had extra bandwidth that was required. It probably has something to do too with your users. So I think the question is to come to, or the suggestion would be to come to Pathables and tell them your particulars of your event, and they can connect you to the right partners around the capabilities that are required. Tell us, Tara, a little bit about, and again, I want to take a quick break. Everyone feel free to use the chat box to ask questions. This is a meeting with Tara Barnes at Pathables, and they are a digital event platform that we've had great success with. They're based in the Seattle area, great service, great platform. And we're talking today about the consumers trying to engage and partner and buy a digital platform. Tara, tell me about some of the wins that you're seeing with the use of digital as a platform versus a live event. What are some of the upticks and kind of benefits that we didn't realize before?
I know, it's been a really interesting thing to see. It's this odd silver lining. So one of the big benefits is that, you know, we're able to get a lot of really rich data. So one of the pieces that I've seen be a standout is, you know, if you think about the exhibitor component. So traditionally, you know, we might have a badge scanning capability. So someone would walk into a booth, get their badge scanned, that becomes a lead. But if I, as an attendee, if I just kind of wander in, I'm just checking things out, I'm browsing, I wander out, they have no record of my having been there. They don't know me from Adam. I was just a ghost that drifted in and out. But one thing that our platform enables exhibitors and sponsors to do is, if somebody visits their booth, there's a section on the kind of managerial side of that exhibitor's virtual booth where I, as an exhibitor, could see my visitors. Now, I don't have their email address because that's a privacy issue, but I can see the names of people who have just visited my booth and the number of times that they've visited. So as the exhibitor, I can then send a message within the platform. It's not an email, it's just a message to that person in the platform saying, hey, Lynn, I noticed that you stopped by 10 times. We haven't had a chance to connect. Is there anything that I can, you know, help you with? So it's these additional kind of insights that you get through a virtual platform that you wouldn't get if you were doing it in an in-person format. Same thing with data on sessions. So again, you know, yes, you might have the ability to have, you know, kind of like a floor mat system to track attendance as people are walking in and out of a keynote, for example. But now you have one place where you're not only getting the data on all of the people who have registered for and attended a session, you can see, you know, all of their interactivity with any polls that you've assigned to that session, any chat functionality, you know, questions, answers relevant to that session, all housed in one very specific place. And so that is giving us the ability to double down and say, gosh, what's resonating, what's not, what do I need to change, especially if you have kind of a series of events. You know, it's giving you a lot more data functionality than ever before. And then the last piece I like to touch on is, in this bizarre time that we find ourselves in, virtual event platforms are giving people an opportunity to connect. And just like Pathable has been doing all along, but it's giving you, you know, that chance to really easily find other people and build connections with one another, even though we're stuck in this seemingly unending world of having to be isolated. So it's pretty powerful.
Well, and I think that, you know, some things that as our team was shopping for a platform, you know, we wanted it to look cool and not like a Zoom staff meeting, which you guys have the ability to do. We wanted it to be easy for the attendee to get in and view the sessions, and that worked tremendously. We wanted it to be easy for the sponsors and trade show folks to get in, build out their digital space, and create an opportunities where they can connect with the attendees, which you guys have been able to do that. The engagement tools around the polls and the chats and the be able to meet other people that are at that show all exist within your platform. So I think one of the things that has been a little convoluted is understanding the content delivery network, or the CDN. And in your platform, essentially all of the speakers are going to a Zoom meeting and coming into a window on your site, and they're conducting business that way as far as the speakers go. And it's built into your platform in a great way that it's been challenging with some other platforms, because they're like, we make it look great on the front, and we have a little area for trade show, but we don't actually produce the content coming in. The broadcast feed is not, they don't do anything with that. So you're having to use multiple tools, where you guys have made it kind of seamless integration. Also the integration with the registration platforms. We had an existing client, we built this in 3 weeks with your team, and all the registrations were already done. So we had Eventbrite in this scenario, and it synced up with Pathables. And so as people registered, they got an email from Pathables that says, this is where you go in and watch the show, basically. So that's how you get to the ballroom.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's in a different format than we're used to, but yes. So we integrate with most major registration providers. If you already had a reg list, we can do an easy import. But you're right. There's a lot that when I think about the various constituents, attendees, exhibitor sponsors, speakers, and then of course the planner, right? There needs to be an ease of use for everybody, and I think that's critical, and the experience needs to be good. And I think I do my due diligence. I sit in on other demos. I'm joining other virtual events where I can. And, it's hard when it's a tough experience as the attendee. I'm like, it's challenging. It's supposed to look good and feel good and make sense. It's not just about the pomp and circumstance and flash. It's about, like, does it meet the needs of these various groups? And there's so much, I always apologize on my 30-minute demo webinars, because I literally have to stay up here, and there's so much, and that's what our sales team's phenomenal at. They just get in the weeds and show you what you want to see and talk about it.
Right.
But there's a lot to consider, and there's a lot of amazing things that you can bring to life.
Well, and as a planning team, I can say that to build out the event on the back end of your platform and make it show ready was very intuitive, very easy. I'm not, super tech savvy, and I was able to get in there and do what I needed to do. So you guys have been very thoughtful around the platform, around ease of use for both the planning team and the guest. So I really want to commend you on that. I have another question about ways to stay connected with attendees after the event.
Yes.
And what's interesting is the event that we did 2 weeks ago, my client is still selling tickets, and people are still going in and watching all the recorded sessions.
Yep.
So it's almost like her sales cycle just is endless. We're keeping the site up to the end of the year. And she has, this great registration revenue that continues to come in. But any thoughts on how to stay connected to folks after the event?
Yes. So that's a great point. I mean, I think your client's example is a fantastic one. So we like to use the word persistent. So our virtual event platform can offer a kind of ongoing persistent experience. So as I was saying, 2 months is a good best practice in terms of getting the event platform live. Your content's not necessarily live. That's still going to happen at that specific time and date, but you're giving people a chance to get in and start to build those connections before your event actually happens. And then yes, you can keep your event platform alive and accessible for up to a year after your event is actually over, and that's included in the pricing. And so you can do exactly what your client did. You can continue to sell, you can continue to provide on-demand content, or in the simplest form, you can just keep it live so that people are able to still continue conversations, meetings, messaging, and just still have that platform available and like as a conduit for people to continue to have those ways to connect. So
well, and if you told an exhibitor that they could have their trade show booth open for a year to field people coming and shopping, that's a huge win. The other thing I loved about the platform was the ability to set up a communication plan. So I think Christina, you asked about the communications. You can go into the platform just like you would MailChimp or something, and you can create these templates. So you would have a post-event, hey, just as a reminder, you can still go visit the visitors a week after, and you could hit the button and push it to everybody. So Pathable creates almost this email platform built into there where you can talk to all the registered attendees, which is really cool.
Yeah. And it's a nice upsell opportunity too from a sponsorship perspective, because you can create that as a part of your sponsor packaging. Maybe they get like a direct sponsored email communication as a part of one of your sponsorship levels, because you can literally, just like you said, create any email template that you want with some great kind of, just like we're familiar with many marketing email tools, like the ability to use tags to pull in attendee data, however you want that to look. There's a lot of functionality there, but I think I appreciate your point, Lynn. I too think it's very user friendly. And when I think about these things, I always try to put my planner hat on, because it does need to be easy, especially like on the front end and on the back end as well.
Yeah, I love that you have that front end. Well, we're getting close to time. And again, I want to encourage everybody who's been on here to take advantage of joining Tara at one of her daily webinars. And if you've got a piece of business you're considering, transferring over, then please give them an opportunity to present a proposal and get in with their sales team and make sure it works. As we close up, Tara, a couple of key tips you would give to planners, maybe like a top 2 or 3 best practice?
Yeah, I say one of the top ones that I recommend right now is really reimagine what your agenda could look like. So you have an opportunity here to think outside the box. So again, I go back to maybe not realistic to expect an attendee, just like, at a in-person event, you might have 9 hours of sessions a day, but people can get up and walk around and move between them. So that's okay. But that's a big ask when it comes to this world that we're in right now. So how could you reimagine it a little bit? Is it that you spread them out over, instead of 2 days, it's 4 days? Or do you build in more opportunities for breaks and activities or things to come away with and think about? We had a client who successfully got so strategic that they actually condensed the number of sessions down 75%, which sounds like a ton, but they actually saw 2 times the attendance in sessions as a result. So you can get creative with, how you are putting together and presenting your content. And then kind of going back to the strategy side, think about what your goal is and what kind of level of production you need or want to bring, because people are getting comfortable now, with this whole Zoom environment that we live in, being on webinars, being on meeting calls. So maybe this is fine, just like me in my home office, that's fine for the level of production that you need or want. But if you need something more, there are vendors out there who are providing some wonderful services that we can easily integrate with by way of, having kind of socially isolated studios. So you could have a keynote local to them in a studio with a very safe, distanced, higher level of production value. Similarly, you can think about, do we want this to be, if it's a scheduled keynote, it can still be on-demand content if it has to be just right. Like if you need something very high level and polished, you could do an on-demand format versus live. So it's just things to think about. But at the end of the day, I mean, going back to your point about the specs, it's still an event. And so thinking about it in the context of, day by day, what are our sessions, what's happening, coming from that place that we're all very familiar with. It's just that the where, instead of, Ballroom A is the virtual event platform. So
He's
I know
on a
it's
Pathable site.
I hope so. I hope to get to work with all of you. It's just sticking with the guts of what in terms of what the logistics of an event normally are, and just we're here to help you figure out the where those are all happening.
I think it really is awesome to have the insight of the majority of the tools that we're all kind of forcing our hand to use these. So it's so great to hear from you. And I think that the takeaways that I have is that give yourself a couple months planning timeline and lead time to let a platform be able to deliver what you need. It's not it's not immediate. Understand your goals, reimagine your content, shorten it up a little bit to make it work for people's device fatigue, and then to understand our numbers before we reach out, understand our meeting specs, just like we would putting an RFP to a hotel, how many users, how big a ballroom, how many breakouts. All that same information needs to come to you guys to help get in partnership, do a demo, and understand if you're the right tool for them.
Yes, exactly. And I will share that list of questions that we typically ask before we do kind of an intake demo. And, I'm happy to chat. Like I said, I have a really unique perspective on all that we offer and, what people are looking for. I feel like our team is continuing to get depth around having a team that has an events background, you know, because we've historically had a lot of heavy tech background. And so, but I'm one of the people on the team that I feel has the most depth in understanding what you all here on the toolkit today, your process. So I'm happy to even just be a sounding board. Like I said, we're not here to be a hard sell. We're not here to force Pathable down your throat. Like, I'd love to be a resource if you have questions. Honestly, my door is open. So
I appreciate that. Is a true spirit of partnership. Tara, do you want to pop into the comment section and put your email in there in case folks want to follow up for you?
Yes.
We will include that. And then Pathables, as Tara mentioned, is going to be putting together an event for event planners that are looking at going digital, and that'll be in June sometime, right, Tara?
Yes, correct. We're aiming for June. Yeah.
And we will help you promote that to our
I appreciate that.
Our community. And again, just thanks for the time to learn the how-tos. And I think from a planner, I would say, you know, we've produced a very successful event with Pathable, and I was thrilled with how it worked, how easy it was, easy for the guests. And we just appreciate that you are bringing us a way to continue to do business. You know, we're in the gathering business, and it was the first to get hit, probably the last to come online. And we were all kind of stunned and looking at each other like, how do we continue to do what we do to gather people? And I think the reality is digital tools, find the right one, and then you can deliver, you can still connect a community, educate people, have a buyer seller atmosphere for different partnerships. It's all very doable. And so I've been trying to put that out to our planners as far as just reassurance, and it's doable because of the partnerships with the technology that you guys have built, Tara. So I really thank you very much for being here. You've been awesome to work with. Thank you to everyone who attended. We will send an email out with the link to the recording on our YouTube channel for Toolkit. We'll come to you again next week with another great partner. And Tara, I appreciate you sending that document. We'll include that in the email that we send to our community. So thanks again for your time.
Thank you all so much.
All right.
Have a great day. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you, Toolkit community. We'll talk soon.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.